My name is Suzanne Alvarez, and I first met Steve when I was 19 years old. Steve was my soon-to-be husband's best friend from college, and they were like brothers. Steve quickly became my brother as well. Throughout the next almost 40 years, we shared our lives with Steve. We celebrated good times and banded together when life threw us curveballs. Steve became our daughter's godfather, wrote and produced music with our son, and was closer to us than some of our own family. Steve, with Lana by his side, presided over our ceremony in the Virgin Islands when we renewed our wedding vows. During the last recession, Steve spent countless hours guiding and working with us to help us navigate through some incredibly challenging situations. My mother was correct when she described Steve as the greatest friend that anyone could ever have. If Steve loved someone, we loved them too. When Steve and Lana married, we welcomed her with open arms. Lana Sue, as Steve lovingly called her, was a VA nurse from Oklahoma. And the vision of what a Lana Sue VA nurse from Oklahoma looked like is what we saw. Sweet and good. We traveled together on vacations. We visited Steve and Lana in the mountains. We met in the middle to cheer on the Seminoles. We gathered in our hometown any chance we got. In the 4.5 years they were married, I never saw Aunt Lana angry or greedy or unhappy in any way ever, ever. She told me she loved her job. She wanted to continue working until she could retire with benefits. We always looked forward to our times together. Lana and I were friends. Again, I never saw Lana be angry, greedy, or unhappy. Never. I truly thought that Lana loved Steve and that their marriage was good. And then unexpectedly, Lana called and said that Steve is dead. He'd been sick, she said. Lana told me she'd been outside mowing the lawn, came inside and found him near the bottom of the stairs. We knew that for the last year, Steve had been oddly sick at times and thought perhaps this was the result of Steve not taking better care of himself. We were completely devastated and completely heartbroken. Shortly after, we gathered with friends and family at their home to say goodbye. We heard story after story of how Steve had so positively affected the lives of so many people. You see, Steve had worked hard, been incredibly successful, and retired early. Steve openly discussed his purpose of paying it forward where he could. He felt like it was his duty and his blessing to share his time and talents with those he loved. We heard story after story. And what I learned sitting there listening to that was he wasn't just our Steve. He was so many people's Steve. They had had the same experience. And I felt so grateful and proud that Steve had been our friend. We hugged Lana. I told her that we would be there for her, like we knew Steve would want us to be. Others did the same. Then we went home to the grief that still gripped our family. A couple of weeks later, I pulled into my driveway, and there's still George next to our daughter, pale as a ghost. Lana killed Steve, he said. And at that moment, my world changed forever. This was Lana Sue, VA nurse from Oklahoma. As I stated, I had never seen her be angry or greedy or unhappy in any way. And now, by her own confession, Lana had stated that she was a murderer who had planned and succeeded in taking the life of our dearest friend, our brother Steve. Lana didn't kill Steve in a fit of passion. This was a deliberate, successfully executed plan on Lana's part. The comprehension of Lana's actions unleashed a flood of new pain. How long did Steve suffer? Were the odd bouts of illness that Steve had been experiencing that year actually from Lana's poisoning? Was he trapped in his own house while he suffered and died? Was he trying to seek help when he went downstairs? Did he know he was dying? While we'll never know the answers to these questions, my heart and soul weeps for what this may have been like for Steve. Now, along with the incredible grief over the loss of our dearest friend, we are faced with the heinous deceit of this evil murderer, who we thought was not only a good person, but whom we had also considered to be our friend. We had been completely fooled by Lana, and never have I been so fooled by anyone. Steve didn't have to die. Lana had a family, a viable occupation. She could have just left. Lana didn't need to kill Steve, but she did. And our shock and grief is still very, very real. And now, knowing that Lana, VA nurse from Oklahoma, supposed loving wife to Steve, is actually a murderer in disguise, makes us question everything. How can we move forward and trust the apparent authenticity of anyone? Recently, my husband and I met up with an old friend who had lost his wife from cancer years ago. Our friend wanted to introduce us to his new girlfriend. It should have been a happy occasion. However, upon meeting the new girlfriend, I felt my chest and throat tighten and panic overwhelm me. What if this seemingly lovely woman is a murderer too? Would our friend suffer the same fate? My husband said, maybe I need to warn him. I mean, this has changed everything about everyone we would ever meet. I've always loved meeting new people and making new friends. Now that has changed. In many regards, I have retreated into a much smaller world. I call it cocooning. Post-traumatic stress is a very real, very painful thing. Today, myself, my husband George, and our 2 adult children remain completely traumatized, devastated, and heartbroken. We have not only lost our dearest friend, our advisor, our brother, our Steve, we have lost our trust in the world as we thought we knew it. The loss of Steve and our lifetime of friendship is completely immeasurable. Homicide is where one person causes the death of another without legal justification. Lana Sue Clayton methodically planned and murdered an exceptional man, Stephen Clayton. Lana took Steve's life, took his life. Clearly there was no legal justification, no extenuating circumstances, and no defensible argument regarding the fact that Lana murdered Steve. Clearly this is a homicide. Under South Carolina homicide law, murder is punishable by a minimum prison term of 30 years, life in prison, or death. While Lana's punishment is not up to me, I do know this. Lana Sue Clayton is an exceptionally diabolical liar, a confessed murderer, and never should be allowed any kind of life in the outside world. I hope that this is the case, Your Honor.
Thank you for coming in.
My name is Lourdes Alvarez, and Steve Clayton was my godfather and my mentor. He was my dad's #1 best friend, his rock. Steve was a second dad to me and to my little brother. He was such a huge part of my family, and he was involved in our everyday life. He loved us, he helped us in so many ways. I could never be more grateful that my parents chose him to be my godfather. Steve did so much to make sure I had every possible chance to be successful in this world. He helped pay my college tuition because he believed in me. He was such an amazing person, and I had been so lost without him. I just wish I could see him, and I hug him, text him, or on the phone, and tell him how much I need him and miss him, and how grateful I am for everything he did for me. But I can't ever do that ever again, and it's not right that Lana will ever get to see her family again. She doesn't deserve that privilege because she's stolen from us. I've cried almost every day since she took Steve away. I feel so betrayed by her. When I saw her at the fake memorial she had at Steve's house, she put her arm around me and said she wanted me to know that Steve loved me. Well, thanks a lot. But I already knew that. She was in Steve's life for barely 5 years. But Steve was my godfather for my whole life, and he loves me for my whole entire life. What she should have been saying was that she was so sorry that she was responsible for killing one of the most important people in my life. But she obviously was not sorry. She was only trying to make people feel sorry for her. She didn't care that we had so many things we were planning to do together. Steve was supposed to be here for when I get married. He was supposed to be here when I have kids, so he could teach them. All the things he taught me. He was supposed to be here now to help me figure out what path I should be on. But he's not here, and I'm struggling, and I'm not okay. I'm begging you, Your Honor, don't leave her life. Don't give her any special treatment just because she seems meek and quiet. She fooled a lot of people, including my godfather. Please don't let her fool you. She stole the life of someone very precious, and then she lied to all of us and pretended like if nothing was wrong. She deliberately chose not to do the right thing. On the day he married this woman, I was 18 years old, but I felt very suspicious of her, and I even asked my parents if she was there for him or for the money. She lied to me, she lied to my parents, she lied to everyone who loved my godfather, and she's still making up lies. Even after she admitted that she poisoned him, she tried to make people believe she did it because he was mean. Steve was not mean. He was kind, wonderful, and funny. He always gave his best to the people he loved, and he was the most special person that in my family and I had ever known. We're not the only ones who feel this way about him. Your Honor, I was born deaf, and because of my mom and dad and the constant love and support they got from Steve, I have cochlear implants, and he was even there for me during my surgeries. I graduated from Florida State University, which was Steve's alma mater and my dad's, and I'm able to stand here and speak the most important words of my entire life. Not only can I speak to you, Your Honor, I also can hear you. So please let me hear you say that she hasn't fooled you like she fooled us. Please let me hear you say that she will never get out of jail for what she did to my godfather. Steve was a good man, an amazing godfather. I miss him so much. My life is never going to be the same without him. Please do not let her get away with this. Thank you.